So, hello everyone. Welcome to the third edition of this Programmatic Advertising Podcast. And we have today with us a seasoned personality in tech field, Mr. Madan Yadav. So, welcome, Mr. Madan, and thank
Uh,
you for giving your valuable time for this Q&A session of this podcast for this advertising tech podcast. And we will discuss certain questions related to programmatic ad tech, like which will be beneficial for the viewers also. So we will start with the first basic question, which we generally ask to all the participants. First question is that what is your personal and academic background?
hey, thanks for the introduction. Happy to be here. Uh, introduction. I am Madan. I look after publisher partnerships for inMobi for India, Australia, and New Zealand regions. So both activating new publishers as well as helping existing publishers monetize within Mobi. So I've been within Mobi for almost 8 years now, I think. Before that, I was in Oracle for a year. That was my first job. Yeah, academically, I have a bachelor's in computer science engineering. So I finished that somewhere around in 2013, I think. Graduated as a computer science engineer, yeah, and then took up a bunch of random things in this place.
So from which
Okay.
you did your engineering? From which college?
I was from Oxford College of Engineering. Was affiliated with VTU. So yeah. Mm. So,
It's located in Bangalore.
yeah. So yeah, I've been in Bangalore for all my life. Started my schooling and everything. Yeah.
So you got placed like via campus recruitment in Oracle.
No, actually no. So 2013 when I passed out was one of those bad years where no one was recruiting for engineers at that point in time, right? So there was actually no campus for us. I attended a few campus interviews outside, but yeah, ended up going through an interview outside the campus.
Okay. Okay. Fine. So, like you spent your initial year in Oracle first year, and then you moved to the ad tech field.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, when I actually joined Oracle, I had told even in the interview that I would only stay there for a year because I was joining to find some time to prepare for my GATE exams. So the idea was to do MTech at that point in time because that's where my inclination was during that time. And I wanted a role which let me study after working hours. So the role that I had taken up in Oracle had a fixed hours. So outside of that hours, you generally had no work related uh, efforts that you had to put, right? So go to office, finish your work, come back, and then I could sit and study. So yeah, that's primarily why I took that up. I finished, gave my gate. Like I quit before gate exam, so just before like 2 3 months before the exam, I quit my job, gave that exam, cleared it, and I think I had some 10,000 odd rank. And the seats were only till 2,000. Only 2,000 seats were there. So I knew I couldn't get into the IITs at that point, but I had the option to go to the state universities. So just trying to figure out if I should take it or if I should give it another year. And I mostly wanted to go into data analytics or data science. At least that is the goal at that time. So I was also giving some interviews for data analysts during this gap. Once I passed out, once I gave my exam and I was waiting to figure out which colleges I could apply or what to do. And then, so that is when or inMobi happened by luck. Right, I was applying for a bunch of companies and inMobi was one of those. I ended up going through the interview, mostly because I think it was mostly a business analyst role. And that was mostly, I thought, okay, let me try this, and maybe I'll get some more time to apply for Gate once again. So that's basically how I got into movie. Did not know it was in tech when I got in. I only came in because I thought it was there was a lot of data analysis and business intelligence. That like my first year or two was mostly around that, and my goal was only around that. Right, so it was not around advertising as such or even ad tech. I learned advertising, marketing, ad tech, all of it once I joined inMobi.
In 2013-14, AdTech was a very benign concept.
Yeah, yeah. So
Many people know about. Yeah.
there was no such thing as like ad tech was there, but yeah, it isn't as big as it is right now, and it
Yeah.
was a very small industry at that point in time.
Like we were not knowing about the concept of programmatic and this open auctions, real time bidding, and everything happening. So it was something which was very, what we can say, foreign concept, which we were not aware of. So, like,
Yeah,
right from doing your engineering, then preparing for MTech, like sitting for the MTech exam, this GATE exams, and then planning for a data analyst role. You landed to a business analyst role in inMobi, and now you
yeah,
have like completed, I think, 11, 12 years here.
yeah. Around 8 years, I think, and total around 10 years of experience. But yeah, basically, yeah, like happened to get into inMobi. Also, luckily, I got into a team which was just building out inMobi's ad tech solutions, right from the old API world to going to the transition of OpenRTB ecosystem and all of that. Uh, uh, InMobi itself was a large company at that point in time, but yeah, I happened to manage to get into that one small four-member team who were working on uh, programmatic and got lucky in that way because I had landed up there and then ended up uh, staying with InMobi itself since then.
Yeah, sometimes many things are related to your destiny, that where you have to work and where we have to give your like initial years, valuable years of your life to a company. And like from an organizational point of view, it is also the you can say the good thing about the organization, due to which the employee sticks to an organization for a long time. However,
Yeah,
there are many organizations where people are not sticking up for more than 2 or 3 years, and just for the sake of experience, they are working in that company, and after 2 or 3 years, they are switching over to a better company, which they think it is a better company in terms of wages and all. So,
yeah,
I myself have spent around 13 years in my parent company, so I can
yeah,
understand that, like giving your valuable years, initial years of your expertise and all to a particular company, it requires a lot of patience as well as perseverance to stick to a set plan. So in programmatic, you have like more than 10 years of experience currently. And how many publishers you have worked with, like
oh,
in numbers?
I think must be somewhere around 40, 50 active publishers. We also have self-serve publishers, so we do help them, but it's not very active, right? So if I say active, then I think around 50, 60 publishers is what actively have interacted with who are working with InMobi. But yeah, I've talked to over 100 plus publishers.
Okay. So now we will move on to the basic Q&A session. And first question in this regard will be a generic question, which is like related to the operations and the management part. So what do you think is more important, like in terms of optimization of revenue? Is it the actual operations which you are doing in that tech, or is it the management, sales, and everything, which is another part?
Yeah, I think it has to be both, right? I think you can't take just one. It's two wheels of the same engine. If one doesn't fire, the other one, no matter how well it runs, it doesn't go well, right? I think I would say uh, both are very critical. You can't ignore the operations if your management is too good. Even then, you would not end up executing things really well. So both are as critical as they are for you to get your end goal.
Do you think the things were different 7 or 8 years or 5 years back, where sales was not of much importance as compared to the operation part?
Yeah, I think at the early days, the concept of digital programmatic advertising wasn't even that big, right? So you didn't have sales as such. And programmatic also, if you go back and look, it came primarily to backfill or yeah, take care of your remnant inventory. So in the early days, I would remember publishers would only, because I worked on the exchange side as well, and when you work with DSPs and exchanges and publishers, the conversation was mostly around, hey, how do we ensure that filled inventory or unutilized inventory gets utilized, right? And programmatic was initially looked at as a full channel to ensure that you fill or utilize your remnant inventory as best as possible while your while your networks at that point took care of your majority of your monetization.
Yeah, like in the current scenario, sales become very much important when you have the demand side restricted, like limited, but the supply side is something which is like, growing day by day. You have a pool of publishers available, and different platforms are also available in terms of like OTT, CTV, DOH. There are multiple apps coming. There are websites which are opening every day with good content, and especially during this time of chat gpt and all, it is not too difficult to launch a website or a app, but
Yeah,
it is difficult to maintain the consistency in the content which is being provided over there. However, in that sense also, there is a lot of competition. So I think
yeah,
from like, since you are from a demand side, uh, like demand side part, so you understand that you have a lot of publishers who are looking out for like optimization of revenue and increasing of revenue. But you have a pool of advertisers who are not only looking out for like generating impressions or clicks. They are much
yeah,
more looking out on the KPIs,
yeah,
finally the conversions which is happening through the campaigns and all, where
yeah,
your role becomes more important.
yeah,
So on the one hand, you have to satisfy the publishers which are working with you in terms of optimization or revenue. On the other hand, you have to satisfy the advertisers KPI, that whether they are able to generate conversions out of the campaigns or not. So it is difficult for like currently it is a challenging job very much.
yeah, yeah. I think it becomes challenging when the whole uh, ecosystem goes through a difficult phase, right? Every time that has happened, and I've seen at least three or four such instances. Couple of them very internal, not very external, but yeah, two or three external where everybody is facing trouble. It becomes really difficult to manage both of them, right? Because the moment you have such a the crunch and demand that happens, everyone goes uh, very good. Everyone starts to optimize for every single lever that they have, right? So the type of campaigns that you get also change, and the KPIs that they are trying to hit also changes as and when the volume of budgets that they have to spend shrinks. And when that happens, then the publishers who are uh, keen and attached to how this is going on tend to change their pricing also, because they know that they have to now compete against a very small bucket, and hence they have to also try and reduce their ECPMs to capture more demand as much as possible, right? Like, because that's the only lever at the publisher end that you can control. Everything else is not really in the supply side of control. It's mostly sits with the demand side.
Uh, like the publishers also need to understand that there are many various factors affecting the performance of the ad inventories and the pricing as well. So they
Yeah,
need to modify the pricing rules accordingly whenever it is needed, so that at least their ad inventory is not getting unsold because of
yeah, yeah,
any
yeah.
issue. Yeah,
So yeah, the ones who understand that always keep making changes, and they're the ones who generally tend to also ask for inputs on how things are panning out, and across they verify it across partners as well, right? And if they hear the same things across partners, then they immediately start making changes internally so that they start getting more demand as much as they can, and then trying to factor in those things.
right. So we'll move on to the next question, that what sort of reporting parameters are the most vital part of performance measurement from an advertiser point of view?
So I think right now the most critical one has been ROAS, your return on ad spends. That it has become the most critical one. While there are impressions, clicks, which are important, almost now it has become like a sanitary metric, right? It needs to be clean, and they do keep a track of it, but it's mostly ROAS, right? How much return on ad spends are you getting from your ads? Spends is what is the most important metric advertisers are currently tracking.
Okay, fine. So we'll move on to the next question. That do you also map conversions in your reporting parameters for any advertiser?
Yeah, so it for all of our advertisers, we have our own conversion trackers as well, and we do have MMP partners who give us the conversion metrics for the campaigns that we are running, right? So we try and use both of that to ensure that we are hitting the KPIs that we've promised the advertisers. So both of that go into the system.
So in many cases, you are tracking the conversions out of the advertisements running on any publisher site,
Yeah, yeah,
publisher property.
in most cases, I would say we are trying to track the end conversions.
So you are putting the conversion trackers in your campaigns, or you are doing something else?
No, it is conversion trackers, right? So you have your click trackers and you have your impression trackers, and then anything after click or impressions comes from the MMP side. So if the user goes and registers on the app and then he opens the app, then the MMPs have their trackers embedded in the app, which they fire, and they are able to get that and they pass that to us. So we can then map the journey that, okay, we drove this impression, this is the click, then the MMP gave us that he had installed it at this point in time. He opened the app at this point in time, and all of that organics is then used to then further optimize, because most of it is optimization for those KPIs, right?
Okay. And like since these conversions are being tracked, what kind of tool you are using for tracking these conversions? Is it any data management platform which you are using for tracking the conversions?
So mm, inMobi has its own internal tools for most of the things, right? So we have our own CDP, which is our own customer data platform, and all of that data comes and sits in our own CDP. So With inMobi specific case, it's inMobi's own CDP. But yeah, if you look at other platforms, then they either would have their own CDP or they might have sourced an external CDP to keep all of this data to manage.
So, through CDP, you are tracking the third-party data or the first-party data? As far as I know, that the CDP is generally tracking the first-party data.
So it depends on what you would call customer, right? For you, for a publisher, their own data becomes customer data, right? It's your CDP. For us, every single advertiser is a customer, and hence their data is kept separately, managed separately, and optimized separately. And hence all of that is customer data for us.
So, uh, the relevance of data will become much more important when we enter into this cookieless world, which is currently getting extended year by year. But once it happens, then I think there will be another tangent coming in regarding the monetization of the ad properties as well as the optimization of the ad performance of the advertisers, where you have to rely only on the first party data available.
Yeah, true. I think that is something that everybody is working on, right? All ad tech platforms, their top priority internally would be to figure out how this ecosystem is going to change and hence how we need to adapt to that ecosystem and then how systems needs to be changed to adapt to it, right? That is currently where a lot of effort is going on. There is still no clear direction on how it is going to end up at this point in time. So it is still an open question. We can only answer once, once we get there and that all that is enforced and you give 6 months for all the platforms to understand, change, adapt, and then we'll probably know how things are panning out after that.
So when we enter into a cookieless world, and when you start actually working on this first party data and other parameters available for tracking purpose, then only you will be coming to know the actual utility of CDP and how the things evolve with the passage of time.
Yeah, so even your bidding, how you look at conversions and how you look at optimization could also change because of this, right? Right now, everything is tagged to ad ID. There was a system that was built. Everybody has understood it basis that. Now, imagine a world where you have, like in the current, at least draft, how Google is given, it's like cohorts. You have cohorts, and then you have to optimize for cohorts. Now, then does cohort ID become the primary variable and you build all your systems layering on top of it, right? Or do you look at it in a more granular way? Will that systems actually work or not, right? Right? The top platforms might still be able to do it because they still control platforms, the underlying ecosystems. But what happens to the other third party players in the ecosystem? How will they then adopt to it is still a open question, right? Because it is still in the draft stage. I think a lot of people are still working with the platforms to figure out how it would bind. Like at least Apple's decisions, Google's is still at least taking its time. It's still working with players to figure out how it could implement this. But yeah, it is coming for sure. How exactly it is going to come is still an open question.
Yes, 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 right. So moving on to the next question, and currently, like we are discussing about the advertiser demands and the publisher demands, which you have to like generally face both of them. So currently, what the advertiser is looking out for, like, are they looking out for impressions only, clicks, CTR, app installs, or the finally the conversions? So what is the like in majority of the campaigns? What are the advertisers looking out
Um, I think it depends on campaign to campaign. A lot of uh, digital campaigns are not in the top funnels, right? So while they're tracking impressions, impressions is not the final number, right? It's either clicks or conversions, which are the key parameters. So it's mostly mid funnel, and bottom funnel, which are the core of what your digital campaigns are running for. Right? There are a few players, of course, the endemic brands and a few other players who look at uh, programmatic for even branding purposes, right? So a lot of your video campaigns are still only looking for video completions, right? Like that's majorly what they are trying to drive for, and ensuring that their brand awareness is going up. So when you're looking at those type of metrics, then your impressions and even clicks become really really important, right? Because they are paying only for that. But then once you go beyond that, most of the other advertisers are not paying that, right? They're paying for some CPA or CPC or some CPX model. And hence that metric is more for hygiene and ensuring that you're not doing anything fraud behind the scenes, because you can identify trends and patterns with impressions and clicks also, and hence that is used as a sanitary metrics. But yeah, most of the other things are all clicks, conversions, and ROAS mostly.
Okay. And like, uh, like many publishers generally ask this question that like suppose we are getting paid through Google and uh, any other ad tech company, the payment is made via total impressions getting served on the property on a monthly basis. So when like suppose Google is running a campaign on a basis of total number of like cost per click or cost per action or CPM, they must be running the campaign on different parameters. But the payment is getting made on CPM. So are they converting the all those parameters in CPMs and then paying out? Because these are three different campaigns. One is like cost per thousand impressions, then you have cost per click happening, and then you have cost per conversions, like cost per action. So, like how this thing actually works from an advertiser point, like from a
Got it.
demand side.
Yeah. So this is all built on uh, the the advertisers who are using a DSP, right? In most of these cases, the DSP has an algorithm which converts your CPA or CPC into CPM. So
Okay.
basically, based on historical trends for a particular advertiser or for a particular category, you
Yeah.
would then convert the CPA or a CPC into CPM for every campaign. That CPM also would change basis every publisher that you're looking at, because every publisher's every single property might give you different impressions and different clicks and different costing, and hence you have different CPMs, right? And different conversions would be coming. So it depends on platform to platform. Some platforms might do it at a campaign level. Some platforms might go one step ahead and do it at a publisher level. So for every campaign, every publisher that they have different CPMs that get converted basis the conversion they see, right? Or it could go even one step ahead, where few players now are doing is they look at users on top of it, right? So for every user that is coming in, I will decide a CPM basis the historic conversion that I've seen, and hence this is the CPM that I will bid across publishers. And if I know that a user is converting well, I will pay as much as the publisher is asking, or how much ever the competition is willing to pay. I will beat all of it, and I'll just take that impression because I know that user converts very well for my, and hence I will pay higher. Right. So it depends on company to company, but yeah, all three models would be there where they can optimize basis however they think each of these systems.
So the payout is not as simple as we thought.
Yeah, in most cases,
Yeah.
it's very rare, in a very small set of categories where advertisers just pay for. whatever ads that they show, right? It's mostly outcome driven these days. It was till, I think, somewhere around 16, 17, where like a lot of it was there. Gaming has from the start been, for the most part, been on conversions. So the gaming advertisers never really cared about where you show your ad, how you show my ad. All of that is of uh, mostly no importance to them, as long as can you get the user to play my game, and can you get him to play for 2 levels, 3 levels? Because then I know if he plays it for 3 levels, he's going to play it for X amount of time, and hence he's going to watch more ads, and then I can generate X amount of revenue from that. Or he's going to pay for some in-game
Yeah.
purchase, and hence I get revenue out of it. So the gaming world has always been in that world where like I really don't care. Like you do whatever you want to do, as long as you can get the correct users to me and get them to install the app or the game, and then get them to start playing the game.
So publishers sitting at one place, monetizing their property through an SSP,
Mm.
DSP on the other side, and the demand side on the other side, where ad tech professionals like you are sitting and breaking deals with the advertisers on different type of campaigns. Like you said, you were discussing about like games, and the basis of two level of games passed, and then the payout will be made on the basis of clicks. It will be made, installs. It will be made, conversions. It will be made. But on the other side, the publisher is sitting idle through an SSP. They are just looking out on the figures daily. Maximum what they are doing is that they are changing the unified pricing rules on their platform, but
Yeah,
they are not aware of the intricacies which the advertising side and the demand side has to deal with, like individual advertisers. So the challenges which they have to face. So the publishers also need to understand these things, that from an advertiser and the demand point of view, it is not so easy to get the deals cracked. And we like I'm also from publisher side, we also have a limited knowledge regarding this. That's why I asked this question, that it is very important to change your perspective towards revenue generation,
yeah,
only from the point of view of generating impressions and generating revenue. It is also important to understand that the demand of the advertiser is also changing day by day, and they
yeah,
are getting more choosy about the way they want to run their campaigns on a particular inventory. Since they
yeah,
have a pool of suppliers also available in terms of the publishers, so it becomes more important from an ad tech professional like you, who like understands their demand properly and suggests them the publisher properties where their performance will be optimized. So
yeah,
it is not so simple and easy to break these things in segments because there are many things happening simultaneously. So
yes,
it is
yeah,
not so easy. So like for the viewers, I would like to like emphasize again that it is not so easy to see the things going on. I think programmatic is not only about the auctions happening on real time basis, but the auctions are happening after some deals which are happening between the advertiser and the demand side platform. And finally, these deals are running through the open auction process where the demand side is bidding, and if they are bidding they're giving the highest bid, then only their campaign is running. So the problem and the challenge doesn't end at the process of only breaking the deal. It is also about giving the highest bid in the terms of competition, which is happening through OB.
yeah. That part I don't think is very easy to see, right? Publishers competing against each other is not a common. It's not something that you can visualize, right? Because we see that because we stand on the other side and we get to see both sides of the aisle. But if you are just on the one side, then like you don't understand in many instances that you're still competing with somebody else, right? Because that advertising pool is a limited pool at the end of the day, and who gets how much is basically decided on conversions in most.
Right. So moving on to the next question, it is how do you run audience-based segmented campaigns for advertisers?
Uh, so, like I said, right, audience-based segmented campaigns are mostly driven through either experimental analysis or historical analysis. By experimental, I mean like a new category of advertiser comes in. If you don't have any data, then you take a smallest bit possible. You bid on every property that you get or every user that you get and see how they convert, and basis that slowly start segmenting users into different buckets and then optimize further that, right? This is the exploratory phase that goes on, can be a week or a month or 2 months. It depends on how complex your optimization is. Or you get advertisers who've always been spending and hence have a lot of data available. And so you take historical data, based on that, you start optimizing going forward. So this is the segmentation is basically decided and optimized on an advertiser to advertiser basis. We get generative data also across advertisers, how users convert. We can observe that also, and then build audience cohorts as starting points, of course. But once you start, you always then try to optimize for that specific campaign, because no two campaigns run the same way.
Yes. So like it depends on campaign to campaign what kind of audience segment you are going to use.
Yeah.
And like you are saying that you are like making buckets on the basis of the user behavior and all. So these buckets, audience buckets, are getting created through the CDP.
Yeah, so everything that we do, our data all resides on the CDP, right? And hence, yeah, having our own CDP makes sense, because we have thousands of campaigns running, and thousands of publishers who are sending us supply. So yeah, everything gets the bidder sits separately. It starts bidding. Once all the learnings comes in, data comes in, that goes into the machine learning model, and all the analysis and understanding is all built, and then it is shipped to the CDP. From CDP, again the bidder takes the data and then runs the campaign again, and then you keep doing that cycle.
And these CDP servers are based on cloud.
Yeah, it could be cloud and it could be on-prem as well. We have a partnership with Microsoft, so we use Microsoft's cloud services, but we have our own on-prem servers as well sometime before we move to. We can do it on both sides. Takes different amount of effort.
Like from data management point of view, what do you think is most efficient form of data storage? Is it cloud or on-premises servers?
Uh, mm, might change company to company. See, I think if you want absolute safety and control over your data, keeping it on-prem is always the safest way, right? Because you control even the physical disks which are there on the system. So from a security layer, yeah, keeping it on-prem is the more secure one, but also comes with a lot of responsibilities of managing systems and updating systems and keeping everything running clean, right? So you spend a lot of time doing just that, right? And if you're willing to uh, uh, willing to accept that a cloud provider will take up a lot of that load and manage it, then a good cloud provider is always easier for you to onboard and have them manage all of that. And you can focus on your core business functions, which is getting that data, like analyzing, optimizing, doing all of it becomes more critical. Yeah, but like it depends. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. If you're not doing a lot of analysis, and if you're not doing a lot of data crunching, then it might be easier to just store it on-prem because you're just keeping the data, and safekeeping is slightly more easier. But if you're constantly churning out things and constantly pushing through things, then having a cloud provider will simplify and offload some of those efforts.
So larger pool of data would it is like suggested, or better way of storing larger pool of data is to store it on a cloud, and like if you have a smaller pool of data where no like less data churning is required, then on premises server will work.
Yeah, yeah, because you don't have to put in a lot of effort to manage all of it, right? So if you're not doing a lot of uh, uh, constant analysis or constant data pulling and pushing, then it's just easier to keep it on-prem if you have that understanding. Otherwise, it's just easier to push it on.
Okay, moving on to the next question. I would like to ask you, how do you define bidding rates for publishers apps on individual basis?
Bidding rates is mostly, so we look at averages, right? So for every publisher, you would look at what is the average ECPM that is coming in across advertisers and then decide the rate, right? Now, that is the starting point. Then what we would do is basically look at who is the highest uh, highest bidding advertiser and what is the price point that he is bidding at, and what is the lowest bidding advertiser and what is the ECPM that he is bidding at, and seeing, hey, can I keep it higher still closer to the largest bidding guy and still get as much filled as I can? Or do I need to keep it in the middle somewhere so that I get a larger percentage of the bidders who are bidding to get the most amount of fills? Because you have to, in current day, know mediation is just looking at fill or ECPM, right? You're looking at both to decide whether you'll get requests or not, right? Most of the header bidding systems work like that. And hence, you have to ensure that you try and capture as much as possible in that pie. But you're always leaving some, and you're always trying to ensure that you push that needle up to get higher ECPM possible, but without losing as much fills as possible.
Okay. And suppose if you are working with a new uh, publisher and you don't know the average CPMs, then do you have any kind of feature available which shows you the average CPMs which the publisher is getting on other platforms?
On other platforms, no. I think that will be really difficult. One is to have a DSP that bids on other supply, and you have some idea on what the buying cost is on other platforms where that publisher is integrated, and hence you get some understanding of what the pricing might be on your own platform. But in most cases, it's just a guidance, right? What we generally advise is that let the systems optimize with as low as a floor possible in the start. Give it 1 or 2 weeks, and then you slowly start increasing it till a point where you see fill rate drastically drop. When you see the fill rate drastically drop, that means that you have hit that point where your supply is being valued, and hence you come back to that point till you continue to get that fill rate, right? If you start getting higher fill rate, then which means that you now have the liberty to push it slightly higher because advertisers are now willing to pay or buy your impressions more than the other publishers, and hence you push it up. So it's a game of trying to look at fill rates and then moving your floor.
So initially you decide a minimum slab for bidding
Yeah,
and you keep on increasing or decreasing it depending on the performance which the publisher property gives.
yeah.
And one cycle which generally is not understood by many people. There are four ad tech companies, the DSPs, which are participating in the bidding part, including Google, X, Y, Z. So the person who bids the highest wins the starts like running the advertisement on that property or location. So from a DSP point of view, do you have multiple advertisers bidding for that slot, or do you have only one advertiser for which you are bidding for that ad slot?
Okay. So it is multiple advertisers who are bidding for every single impression. So the number of auctions, if you look at it on the programmatic side, at any given impression, there would be at least a minimum of 2 auctions.
Okay.
A maximum could be some 4 or 5. So, like, how are these auctions happening, right? So, let's say, for example, you have a DSP which has 5 or 6 campaigns set up, and all that 5 or 6 campaigns want the single impression that is coming from this publisher. So, they all bid, and then the DSP decides whichever is the highest among them gets chosen for that impression, and it passes it to the exchange. Now, if your exchange is your primary ad server, then you would still have other uh, partners who are giving you demand, who would have chosen the highest paying advertising campaign from their pool, and all of them again compete to get the decide who is the highest paying among them. And then you decide, then you close the auction and give the impression to that advertiser. Now, if you have your exchange that you're buying through is not your primary ad server, then you would still go through your exchange, find the highest bidding campaign or the advertiser, and then pass it then again to the ad server. And then you will have another auction there as well, and then it finally ends up on the user side. So at least minimum of 2, maximum could be like 4 or 5, depending on how long the chain is going to be.
Like your company is like your company or like any ad tech company which is bidding along with Google Ad Exchange for a particular ad slot, and there that ad tech company also is going through internal bidding for their own
Yeah,
advertiser demand,
yeah,
and that internal bidding is the person giving the highest bid, the advertiser giving the highest bid, is going through for the final bidding process on
yes,
Google OB.
yeah,
And if you are like lucky enough to win the bid finally, then your ads will run.
yes,
That is what you are saying.
yeah.
And how the locations are decided, because locations are like in bidding, are the locations confirmed, or are you bidding for only the above the fold and below the fold properties?
See, locations, it's not always clear whether you will get the location or not, right? The app, the user, the device is all very clear because those are the identifiers that come in. Uh, for some platforms, they will have additional information of the location of the ad as well. But let's say, for example, you have the same size across 3 or 4 screens of your app, right? The first screen, the second screen, or third screen, you have the same size, and then and hence you have all integrated it into one yield group with different line items for each of those ad units, right? So then, does the advertiser or the DSP always get to see all those ad units? In most instances, it might be no. Like they might not be able to differentiate between that with a transparent signal coming from the ad manager, right? But yeah, there are partners who, if you put in the effort to integrate directly with the publisher, map those ad units, do all that work, then you would be able to differentiate. Okay, this is the above the fold and this is the below the fold, and that information also can only come from the publisher. The publisher has to
Okay.
tell the platform that this slot is above the floor, this slot is below the floor. And then you have to somehow internally map it back to tell the guys who are bidding that okay, this slot is above the fold and this slot is below the fold, and hence you can optimize differently.
So, like for OB, I understood that it is difficult to identify the bids ad slot wise from an
Yeah,
advertiser point of view or from a demand side point of view. But when a publisher is doing a direct integration, SDK integration with any ad tech company, then it may be easier for identifying the ad units for which the advertisers are willing to bid. However, you are
Yeah,
saying that it is subjective to identification of the ad slots via above the fold or below the fold. So,
yeah.
what kind of process the publisher should follow for identification of such ad bids in above the fold or below the fold? Do they need to create a separate yield groups via
See,
above the fold and below the fold properties?
yeah, ideally, if you do it, then you can understand and manage that impressions better, right? Does it make it easier if you club it all into one? 100%. Operations becomes very simple, right? You put everything into one and run it as one, and it becomes easy, right? But are you extracting the maximum that you can from those ad units? Probably not. Right? Can you put in a little more effort to split all of that and then create and manage? Probably yes. But how much will that incrementality be is also still subjective, right? Is there any real difference between the users who are engaging on the above the fold versus the below the fold is what you have to see. If there is, then continue to maintain that setup. If you don't see any difference, then fold it all back into one and make one ad unit again and run that. Depends on the app and how the users are engaging in that ad unit.
All right. So, from hassle-free point of view and without considering much about the revenue, it is better to set up the yield at run-on network and run it as it is. And if we want to segregate and optimize the revenue further, then as suggested by you, this may we can
You can
put different.
experiment.
Yeah,
It is worth experimenting, right? Is there a real difference is what we need to understand. It's not that
yeah,
okay, just because you create different ad units means that you get different pricing, right? If there is no real difference in conversion or the way the users are engaging in those ad units, then you will not see a difference, right? Can you roll it back then and 100% roll it back, keep your ops as light as possible because you are putting efforts at the end of it. But are you seeing in some slots much better eCPM? If you do, then it is worth keeping that separately and then worth putting the effort with the partner that you are integrating to set it up separately so that they also understand that it is a different ad unit.
right. So moving on to the next question, have you worked on header bidding, and why header bidding has edge over open bidding? What are the cons of header bidding?
Yeah, I have worked on header bidding. The header bidding has a distinct advantage when it comes to the old waterfall model. It just enables you to uh, look at a larger pool of advertisers and try and extract the best eCPM that you can for your top set of users. Right? The disadvantage of header bidding is that it doesn't allow you to peg your inventory at a very high price if you decide to do so. Right? The floor always decides how much fill rate you will get. And if the advertisers think that the floor that you are setting is not giving them the conversion, then they will not bid above that. And you will end up losing all those impressions. Right. And then what do you do after that? That's the disadvantage if you run it pure header bidding. Right. Pure header bidding without a floor, at least from what we have seen till now, seems to be more beneficial for the advertiser than the publishers because they can decide what the pricing is. If the publishers want to have some sort of control, then having a hybrid model where you have both header bidding and waterfall might get you much better results.
So when you are adding header bidding to already open bidding platform, then the highest bid via open bidding or header bidding starts running the advertisement.
No, see, I think there is open bidding is just Google's branded header bidding at the end of the day. It is still header bidding, right? If
Still
you
header
set
bidding.
up, yeah, can you set up another header bidding on top of Google header bidding? Yeah, you can. Like if you put in the effort and if Google allows you to do it in the custom integrations, then you can. But it is still header bidding, right? Then you're still setting up a waterfall after that. Like then you set up a hybrid header bidding model. One, your own header bidding that you run first, then you run open bidding, which is also another header bidding, and then maybe you have waterfall after that, or you end it there.
JS is generally placed in the code, like the JS code is placed in the head of the board, like website, and then the actual server side auction happens. So
Yeah.
it is header bidding, which is happening in OB
Yes.
also.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So OB is just Google's branded header bidding, right? Like every company will have their own brand names. We also have our own brand name. So, but yeah, the underlying technology is header bidding.
So other ad tech companies which are pitching header bidding above OB, so like they are also placing the same prebid.js code for running the header bidding on publisher site or app. So like how does it work then when OB as well as HB is working and the bid coming through the highest OB or HB is generating the advertisement?
See, I think then it depends on what type of solution you're trying to offer there, right? Like, do you want some control? So some publishers do this where they have open bidding, but they set up their own header bidding or an open header bidding solution for their select set of partners because they want to understand what the demand is, how much ECPM they are getting, can they segment their users differently and get better yields out of their users, and hence use this higher line item to overcome this. That is possible, right? And then let Google do its own header bidding logic, right? If you have full transparency into the OB world, then do you still need a additional header bidding line item? Probably not. But if it is not there, then if you'd want that, then you try this.
Because from a publisher point of view, we also have to take care of the site load and the
Yeah,
latency happening because of
yeah,
additional header bidding integrations.
yeah. So yeah, it doesn't come easy as well, right? Not just the latency, but it's definitely a large factor to play with. Also managing that if you're running it in-house also takes a lot of effort. So is that worth it is what the final call would have to be.
So moving on to the next question, I would like to ask you that what current challenges you are facing as an ad tech professional, keeping in view the global ad outage, which we can like specifically state, which is happening where the demands have shrunk and advertisers are not willing to spend as much as they were willing to spend 6 months back. So how you are dealing with this situation and how you are trying to minimize the losses out of it.
So we are still like I think it's still something that we are trying to figure out, right? So we are working with. Good thing is that we have a large pool of advertiser relationships that we can bank on, and hence going back to them, understanding what their current KPIs are, and trying to see if we can be the best optimizing partners for them, right? So like every advertiser also works with multiple partners. And hence, you have to ensure that you are doing better than the other partners for you to get budgets as well, right? And also trying to figure out how we can keep our costs low, and we can ensure that all our systems are also running as best as possible, right? Yeah, like you said, it's a difficult time for everyone to go through because that's how the situation right now is. We're just trying to optimize and do the best we can till things.
Yeah, everybody is hoping for the things to improve in future
Yeah,
from publisher as well as advertiser point of view
yeah,
because everybody is facing the heat because of the demand outage which has happened. But like but from an advertiser point of view as well as the publisher point of view, everybody has their own limitations.
yes,
And currently we just have to wait and watch and deal with the current limitations which we have.
Yeah.
And moving on to the next question, I would like to ask you that do you think remnant inventory monetization is important to reduce the unfilled impression rate? And how do you do it? Do you reduce the bid rate to lowest level? How do you manage the brand reputation and safety in such scenarios when you are monetizing the unfilled impressions? Because generally the monetization of unfilled impressions requires very lower ECPMs as compared to the ECPMs which you are generating through open bidding.
Yeah. So yeah, it is very important, right? Right. Regardless of which publisher you talk to, there will be unfilled impressions. How much unfilled impressions is dependent on how they value their inventory, right? And hence how much is not being captured. Uh, in that scenarios, then it's important to then differentiate who your highest paying advertisers are and who is not your highest paying advertiser. And finding that demand pool where if that advertiser doesn't see the conversions that you see, then you try and see if you can capture some of that demand through your channels, right? And hence that demand optimization becomes important. And it's not always uh, keeping it as low as possible. Keeping it as low as possible is an input is generally given because you don't know where that ECPMs are going to land, right? And hence if you have decided that it is going to be unfilled, then keeping it as low as possible to help capture as much as possible is generally the outlook that is taken, right? But you can also what you can then do also is to use decide what is the bare minimum that you would take and keep that for the remnant. If you still have unfilled inventory after that, can you cross promote some of your properties through in-house ads? Is the last option. If you say that, okay, if it is going below that, my cost itself is going to be higher. I don't really want to give it to anybody. Can I at least utilize or promote my other properties or features or things like that? Becomes more valuable at that point in time.
Okay. So do you also use any reports like bid rejection reports, historical bid rejection reports for the ad inventories which you are planning to monetize, like which are getting unfilled on any publisher side? So there are various reports like including the bid rejection reports available ad unit wise, where you can see that on what kind of ECPMs the bid has been rejected.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's one of the metrics that we actively look for. If we don't get it all the time, that's unfortunate. But if we get it, then we definitely look for it, right? And try and optimize. Sometimes the floors that we select might not be the floors at which we'll be able to win, right? And we are giving the wrong input to our advertisers. This, if we get a bid rejection report, then that is really valuable.
So if your publisher is willing to share the report with you, that will be helpful for you because they have that bid rejection report available.
Yeah. Yeah, so like in many instances when let's say we don't see good win rates on open bidding, we ask for that. Right? Can you give us what is the ECPMs that you're getting across your partners? How much is the win rate, so that we can understand if what we are doing wrong and hence optimize for that, right? Like there is the reality that even if you try and optimize, sometimes you might not get the type of fill rates that you would want because you don't have demand for those publishers or that user. That's a realistic scenario that can happen. But if it is available, then yeah, definitely try and use that to try and optimize for it because it will teach you a lot of things that might not be openly visible. If it is available at a platform level, then we try and integrate it while we are integrating itself, right? It is one of the metrics in OpenRTB as well, right? The loss chain is there. So
Right.
if it is available, then you integrated it through the loss chain. If the partner is not willing to give, then if the platform is not willing to give, then can you go to the publishers and ask blinded reports so that you can understand? is the best you can do. Yeah.
So, from a publisher's point of view, the viewers who are watching this video, we would like to emphasize on one thing, that if you are planning to monetize the unfilled inventory, it is important to share the metrics with the ad tech company who is willing to monetize your unfilled inventory, and give us them the reports, including the bid rejection reports, which will let the ad tech company understand the level of bid rejection happening on ad unit level, and what kind of floors should be put in for bidding at that level, where the ad inventory will not go unfilled. Because you are not only getting built on unfilled inventory, you are also getting built on direct ad server impressions, which are generally a backfill impressions, where you are running your own house ads. So it is like they are also a sort of unfilled impressions only. Any impression which is not generating you revenue is unfilled. So if you are really serious about generating revenue, then it is better to share the available metrics if your like admin is allowing you to do that, so that from an advertiser point of view and the other ad tech company point of view, they are it is easier for them to understand the ad demand available on those ad inventories which are getting unfilled, and which are generating more direct server impressions demand, rather than impressions getting generated through ad exchange or open bidding. So, moving on to the next question, I would like to ask you, um, what kind of technical skills programmatic ad tech people should learn before hopping on to the programmatic bandwagon?
See, I think it's mostly problem solving skills that we at least see value more than any other skill set, I think, right? Like everything else, you can teach someone, but if they're not innately problem solving in their approach, then it becomes difficult because at the end of the day, you're doing mostly problem solving, right? There are enough problems. Can you find new ways to solve for it? So when we are looking at professionals also, first thing we look for is, does this person have problem solving skill sets?
So that
And
is like,
then,
yeah,
sorry, yeah.
please tell.
So yeah, then you look for other skills like, do they understand the ecosystem? Do they understand how an exchange works, how a DSP works, SSP works? All of that understanding is more much easier to teach compared to problem solving.
So you can teach the skills on the job itself, but it is important to analyze the person's analytical abilities and the problem solving abilities, so that once any troubleshooting thing happens, then he is able to troubleshoot the things properly and successfully.
Yeah,
That
you can only uh, teach so much, right? Our industry itself changes so much,
yes,
right? We are not from an industry that is very set and standard, right? We don't work with set and standard rules, and everything keeps changing. And hence, okay, if what I teach 6 months back might not be valid today, then do you really value what they understand now, or do you value their ability to learn and understand? Is the question, right? And we tend to go the other way. Like, even if the person knows more, if he is not able to problem solve, or if we don't see that, then we don't. We might not consider, at least, I think.
the standards are getting set and the standards are changing constantly, and that needs to be like, it is an ever evolving process, where every day there is a change happening, and you need to change your standard operating procedure accordingly, in terms of your work as well as your the management part is concerned. So, moving on to the next question, what is the most revenue generating advertising segment currently, which you have seen? Can take a last 6 months example.
Yeah, I think mostly it's the endemic brands, the traditional brands, which we have been spending. They are the larger ones right now. Outside of that, it's mostly insurance, gaming and a few very large digital native players. They are the ones who are mostly spending right now. The other ones have sort of died down. So your crypto is gone, RMG is slowing down. Depends on how things pan out, but yeah, if it pans out well, then RMG might come back. But yeah, that's currently how it is looking like.
And what about the e-commerce brands? Amazon, Flipkart.
E-commerce brands, they've sort of uh, limited themselves to only during the sale period. We do see spends, e-commerce spends, but it's all sort of tends to be only during their sale periods, right? That's when they spend heavy, and after that they sort of reduce it as much as they can. Right? They might still have some budgets which are always on, or they are running it for their uh, advertisers, right? Let's say like you're listing on Amazon and you can advertise through Amazon, and Amazon will run your ads outside of the platform as well, right? So some of those campaigns will be there, but the Amazon itself spend heavily. That probably is mostly during the sale period. Outside of that, not so much, because whoever is going to use e-commerce at this point in time, it's already using e-commerce, right? And it's mostly tier two, tier three penetration that is pending right now. And for that, they also have to do a lot of effort to get their, you know, backend infra also built out. So a lot of effort is going there.
That I have also seen as part of revenue during the this Amazon sale day or the Flipkart sale day happening. So suddenly I saw the revenue jumping by $2,000 on that day. So I was shocked. Then I got to know that the sale is going on. So
The
I
two things you can see, no? One is you don't realize that a sale is going on and you see budgets going up. So you see whose sale is going on, or you see whether there is a sports event and like a cricket match or an IPL match going on. A match goes on and the spends a spike because there are advertisers who spend only during those times. So two things.
yeah,
That's how I keep track of cricket. Otherwise, it's difficult for me to track which matches are going on.
right. So moving on to the next question, how do you think is the seasonality of ad demand is important in terms of revenue generation? Like ad demand increases on the basis of season, on the basis of any phenomenon. Like you said, IPL is there, then you have phenomenon like these kind of sales happening, Amazon sale day is happening, sale week is happening. Then you have other festivals, big festivals coming in. So are these parameters very much important when the advertising like revenue optimization happens? Because we generally keep track of revenue quarter wise. First
Yeah,
quarter, second quarter July to September, but third quarter is like from October to December. It is the most revenue generating quarter because all the festivals are there in the third quarter itself, right? From the Shara to Christmas, all
yeah,
these festivals come under this October to December period.
yeah.
So how do you think it is important?
Oh, I think it is very important. Like primarily because marketers plan their budgets based on the festival, right? And also, uh, all their users or their customers also their spending pattern is also dictated on festivals and these events, right? Like you tend to buy a lot more things during a festival than otherwise, right? Like the festival is coming, you buy clothes, sweets, food, all of it, right? You go out and spend, go out, have a meal, and come back on a special occasion. And those are all festivals. Tends to be the easiest indicator where majority of your customers are most likely going to spend or they're planning to spend during that time. That's how most of us have been, like we grew up like that also, right? And we tend to do those things now as well. So like the campaigns are planned in such a way, and hence our optimizations are also based on that, right? If advertisers are spending during that time, then we tend to optimize more during those periods.
All right. So we are closing towards like finalizing this podcast. So there are two, three questions more remaining this podcast. So I'd like to ask you that what is supply path optimization from an ad tech company point of view, and how is it done?
So supply path optimization is basically where every platform tries to understand how many players or partners are there from your publisher to your DSP, right? That limit, reducing that number as much as possible is basically supply path optimization, right? Because of the way our industry is set up, it tends to happen that you send the request to a partner, they have an exchange, they send it to another partner. Ideally, that partner has to respond back. What happens is that some of those partners also send it to a few more partners, and they send it to another partner, and hence the chain becomes really long. And at one point in time, uh, all the requests were getting recycled in the system too much. To stop this is when platforms started doing supply path optimization. So they started reducing the number of players through which they would get a particular app or a particular publisher's inventory, and limit the number of players that they would also work with. Right? You always have to work with three or four players because seasonality and people who like all the ecosystems, platforms, and algorithms change, and hence you have different players. But limiting that number and ensuring that each partner is adding value is mostly what supply path optimization broadly looks like.
Okay, so in terms of supply part optimization, it is more probable that you will be able to retain the advertiser demand, and not it is not getting recycled to other channels.
Yeah, so you try and ensure that you get to the supply as directly as possible. From a DSP's lens, so supply path optimization is to ensure that, like, am I sitting in the exchange that is directly integrated with the mediation that the publisher is using, right? And that is how they look at it. From a publisher standpoint, hey, like all my advertisers are coming through XYZ platforms. Can I limit it only to that? And hence, I keep a clean pipe and I don't let other players resell my inventory too much, right? And hence reduce the number of players who are in the intermediate chain. So it goes both ways, and both players tend to optimize. Sometimes it becomes really difficult if both players optimize really hard and you cut off all channels and it's very limited. But yeah, generally that's how it's.
Okay, fine. So like in terms of publishers, what we do, like we don't do like SPO, but like in terms of auctions, if we have some premium inventory available and there is a seasonality of demand also for that premium and inventory, then instead of going on for an open auction, we do a PMP auction where we invite limited advertisers for bid on that property for getting the highest rates, whichever is getting bid through them. So in that case we ensure that we are getting the highest rates also, and plus we have a limited and exclusive demand pool of advertisers who are bidding for that ad inventory. So there is not a lot of competitions also happening, but still from that limited pool we are getting the best yield
Yep.
of ECP.
Yeah. Yeah.
So moving on to the next question, do you believe direct advertising is as much important as programmatic advertising?
Yeah, I think for every publisher, right, there are a set of industries or advertisers who are going to see the best benefit out of advertising through their platform. And you try and reach out to them directly and keep them direct because you're limiting the cost that you are paying to get that advertising dollar. And hence direct becomes important. But direct doesn't have to uh, mean that you take all the campaigns and run it on your side. You can do direct through programmatic as well. As long as you are directly talking to the advertiser, uh, I think that should ensure that you get that demand.
Like we also run PG deals. These are also part of direct campaigns only. Only the thing is that it is getting channelized through Google
Yes,
currently.
yes, that's correct.
And next question is, how do you see the programmatic landscape changing in the era of AI and ChatGPT?
Oh, think that's a difficult one to answer right now, given what Bing is doing or what Google is going to decide to do. How do you then decide who's the correct publisher or who's the creator if the creator itself is an AI, right? Like if you can create a website using AI and then if the search engine is showing results from that AI as a content, then who do you pay? Who owns the content at the end of the day is still a question that I don't think is answered.
God knows what
So
will
it's,
happen, because all these big shots like Microsoft and you know Google, all these are experimenting and putting so much of money in the field of artificial intelligence. You never know that you start getting answers when you start thinking about them.
yeah, I think you still do in some instances. Some ads do come up when you start thinking. I
Yes,
think,
it happens. Like we start getting push notifications from apps like Zomato and Swiggy for ordering the food, and we have just talked about that food. I don't know how it is happening, whether they are hearing our conversations or something like that.
probably guessing whether you would want to talk, right? And mass push notifications during time periods.
That will cause a kind of havoc in the field of programmatic advertising. Like your advertiser is saying something to you, or they are having any kind of software where they are just thinking of running the campaign in such a manner, and all that campaign is getting executed in that manner automatically without any manual intervention. So that
Yeah,
is something, a possibility. You don't know how these things will evolve in the future. But I think
yeah, I
there should be a balance of all these things, manual as well as like automated balance, because like everything is being done for the benefit of humans, and if humans are getting replaced uh, like from every sphere, then I don't think it is worth it. Everything will
yeah.
be done by machines only. Then what humans will do?
Tell the machines what to do. I think that's all we could do. Other than that, probably not much. Uh, But yeah, I
Yeah.
think it is the same change, right? Like the industrial evolution, which changed how we live.
Yes.
There is going to be a similar level of change once artificial
We are
intelligence fully comes
we
in.
are ready to embrace the changes. We are ready to embrace the changes. Like I also, like from a hotel management background, I have been doing this programmatic advertising since last 10 years, and I have learned many things. I'm still learning. We will keep on learning till I'm in this ad tech space. And I have also started doing this masters in computer applications, which was a totally, benign concept for for a person from my background.
Yeah,
So still trying to learn and adapt to the changing environment, because at one time I hated maths.
yeah.
Things
Now,
change with passage of time. But I'm trying to understand the process of technology and trying to understand how these things can be implemented in the ad tech field. Like while interacting with people like you, we also come to know that, oh, all these things are also there. Oh, how these things are getting done, how the deals are getting broken down by the, like from the ad tech point of view, from the advertiser's point of view. Like at one point of time, I was just setting up the UPR and then understanding, oh, I have got only 1 lakh impressions on this item. Oh, so it is so less. This is the revenue. But I'm not understanding that how this revenue is coming, and through how, what kind of conversions it is coming. It's not only the impression conversion which is happening.
yeah,
So there are too many things. I mean, we are. also running direct advertisements through empaneled ad agencies. Also, there are direct ad demand which are directly coming to us for running the ads. So what we guarantee them? We guarantee them only one thing, that is impression. Impression is guaranteed, or maximum clicks or CTR that can be guaranteed.
Yeah.
But like as far as cost per action is concerned or cost per click is concerned, we are not sure we will be able to do that or not, because we don't know that how many impressions we have to burn in that case if we are running a
Yeah.
CPC campaign or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? But from an advertiser or ad tech company point of view, who is running our like driving our programmatic demand, like inMobi is also there, so they are doing all sort of things to bring that revenue for a publisher. So their work in that case becomes more challenging. And if the publisher or the party is able to understand that the challenge involved in the process involved in the kind of work the ad tech companies are doing, then I think in most of the time the supply side as well as the demand side will work in sync with each other without
Yeah.
too much of conflict, because everybody
Yeah.
understands the situation currently, which is not so favorable for everyone.
Yeah.
And moving on to the next question is that what tips can you give to the programmatic advertising people who are either not a part of this programmatic advertising or who are planning to switch to a better company or a better proposition? So what kind of
Uh,
basic things which they should work on?
so I think, yeah, like firstly would be to try and work on problem solving skills, that like basically think in that fashion and solve a lot of puzzles and problems and see if you can orient yourself towards that side. But yeah, outside of that, I think it's good to uh, do the certifications that are there. So every platform will allow you to do a certification. Google will allow it. Facebook allows it. They all have that certification platform. Doing that to basically not have a certificate, but to have an understanding of how things are done and uh, how things are supposed to look like in each other platform. Right? I think how things are done is mostly the same. How platforms change, what nuances each platform offers. That is what all of these certifications will help you understand, at least. Right? Like that is will help you get more accustomed to the jargons that get thrown.
But unless and until we work on that MIS, whether it is GAM or
Yes.
DV360,
Yeah.
we will not be able to understand the system properly.
Yeah, you need to have worked at least on one of the platforms directly, hands-on, to get an understanding of how things change. You can move from platform to platform, right? Like that's just UI and how things are set up and some nuances. But yeah, like without hands-on experience, it becomes difficult. Then you have to put in a lot of effort or try and do things on your own, get one of these free accesses and play around with it mm, to learn those things. That is another way to go around.
All right. So I think we have come to the end of this podcast, and it was very much informative, as well as we discussed too many things which were also not on our agenda in the questionnaire which I had shared with you. So, but it was a very enlightening kind of session in terms of like active knowledge, and I thank you very much for your valuable time and your inputs in the field of programmatic advertising. I hope we keep in touch and we keep sharing knowledge related to programmatic advertising also in the future. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah,
And
you are
yeah,
welcome.
hope we keep learning. Thank you.